Welcome to Desma. Welcome to some tips and tricks on how to save energy and how to save costs. So this will be a small series. You will have 3 episodes in which we are going to show you how to, well, first of all, get an idea about your production CO2 footprint, how to reduce energy consumption, and how to reduce costs, also related and connected to your machines and your production's energy consumption. So what we like to start with is, well, most of you, I think all of you, do know your shoe size. But I would say very, very few of you have a dedicated idea about your CO2 footprint connected to your production. First, before we go into this, we like to position a bit the CO2 footprint of your shoes production. In average, we would say that about 6 to 20 kilograms of CO2 are emitted in the course of the production of a pair of shoes. This is covering the whole shoe. This is covering the whole process. And you have huge varieties depending also on the shoe type. If you have sports shoes, the consumption and the emissions are higher compared to, for example, casual or safety and security shoes. So the CO2 footprint strongly depends, and the emissions connected to this strongly depend on the energy sources you are using. Of course, the more green, the more recyclable, the more economical friendly the energy sources are, the less CO2 you are emitting. However, it stays with this that the energy footprint of your production strongly depends on the energy sources. The second point we like to highlight here, and we like to come back to the 6 to 20 kilograms per pair, the Desma machine and the involvement of a Desma rotary table in the process causes most of the time less than 5% of the total energy consumption. Nevertheless, this is the point where we tackle, and this is the point where we go into this little table. I'm not going to read all the lines, but what you can see here is that depending on the way of producing PU mono compared to 3-layer with PU and TPU and maybe rubber has huge influence on the total footprint. So PU mono, for example, you have approximately 100 grams of CO2 emitted per pair of shoes. If you're looking at a 3-layer shoe where you have rubber and or TPU and you have 2 layers of PU inside, you have almost 50% more, which means that you have an average an amount of 150 grams per pair of shoes emitted. So this also results in the energy consumption. And with this, energy consumption was the first and the starting point that we inspected when looking at the Desma D62230 station. And it became quite fast and quite obvious that there is one major component causing the majority of energy consumption and thus also being a major contributor to the CO2 emissions. And this is the so-called TEE. It's the tempering unit that by heating a medium, which typically is water-based, is then indirectly heating 2 very crucial things in your machine. The inner mold surfaces, this is the point where heat is transferred into the article, and the material tanks. This is the point where this water-based medium is indirectly heating the material, polyol, isocyanate, which is stored inside the tanks. But in both cases, you have an indirect heating. And indirect heating is unfortunately connected to energy losses and efficiency losses, because more transmission points means more losses. And if the effective surface is smaller than the tempered total surface, you have even higher losses due to thermal energy being evaporated or evaporating in the ambience. So with the TE in mind, and please keep this in mind, we are going to, well, also start with the next series, and we are going to transfer to the next series, which you will see in a few days. But what came obvious and what became clear in this session, I hope, is that you need to have an overview. You need to have a feeling. You need to have more than a feeling on how to measure your machine's energy and what to do with the data later then. So, and this is the starting point. From April this year, every machine, every Desma rotary machine, is delivered with hardware to measure the energy consumption and software to visualize this consumption. So your Descon Multitouch will be upgraded by another page, and this page is then showing the energy consumption caused by electrics and by pneumatics. This is inside the machine, but most of you are also working with third-party systems, which are then used to calculate the overall production's energy consumption, for example. And to serve this, we are going to offer from March, actually from today, an interface which is called Easy Exchange, and this Easy Exchange interface is transferring the data that your machine is creating into a database which you can then fetch the data from in order to work with this data in your third-party software. So there's 2 tools we like to start with. There's more to come in the next series. But for you, the learning is, well, CO2 footprint depends on the energy sources you're using. It depends on the way you're producing. And there's tools made by DESMA to measure this, to visualize this, and to exchange this. And with this in mind, see you soon in the next episode. Thank you very much.